Hello there. Happy Valentine's Day from the office of Heather D. King. Um, I just thought I'd make a little video. I just have been kind of itching to. I'm trying to, I don't know, regroup and sort of pare down my travel and get quieter. And I don't know if you go through these periods, but I certainly do. And, discerning. Always there's a discernment, always more to surrender, more to let go of. But I want to talk today about something I've been thinking a lot about, sort of this idea of vision versus vocation. So I'm going to get to that. But first I want to just mention this book, wonderful book I've been reading. I'm going to write a column on it. It's called Question 7 by Richard Flanagan. Richard Flanagan is a Booker Prize-winning author, and here's just part of the blurb. He was raised and lives in Tasmania. And Question 7 refers to a super short story by Chekhov. But beginning at a love hotel by Japan's inland sea and ending by a river in Tasmania, Question 7 is about the choices we make about love and the chain reaction that follows. I think it's about a lot more than that myself, but by way of H.G. Wells and Rebecca West's affair through 1930s nuclear physics to Flanagan's father working as a slave laborer near Hiroshima when the atom bomb is dropped, this daisy chain of events reaches fission when Flanagan, as a young man, finds himself trapped in a rapid on a wild river, not knowing if he is to live or to die. It's very beautifully written, very sort of poetic, and raises a lot of questions without actually articulating them nor answering them. And it's all, I think, the deeper for that really has to do with the nature of reality. I think in some ways the fact that especially today with we're so shamed into thinking every drop of water we use and every can we don't recycle, etc., is killing someone, and in one sense, of course, that's true. But I think, like, where is the line? In some sense, by being alive, we're taking up space and air and food that could be for someone else. So if you take that to its a logical conclusion, you would just have to kill yourself if that were your version of love. And so I think there's a middle ground in there. And but that's one of the this great mystery. I think all you can do is be grateful that you are alive, and you realize that there's this chain of events that is completely not able to be untangled ever, that led to your being alive and on the earth. So for me, speaking of vocation, the answer is kind of to figure out, insofar as possible, why I was put here, what master I'm going to serve, and then do that to the utmost of my strength and ability, failing constantly falling by the wayside, constantly following my own will and not God's, but living with that too, accepting that and living with that tension without either hopefully taking it out on someone else or breaking. But anyway, so vision versus vocation. I'm not sure, I don't mean to imply they're two completely separate things, but the whole vision concept comes about because I belong to this, or I'm a member of this 12-step program that has to do with money. It's kind of about bringing God or the God of your understanding into your money life, whatever your money life might be and whatever your sort of neuroses or blocks around money might be. Some people obviously are insane spendthrifts and just run up credit card debt and get way in over their heads and can't figure it out. Then there's other people, I'm way more in the latter group, who, just to take the two extremes, very fearful historically about running out of money. So and when the money runs out, you just die, or you live under the freeway underpass. And so, this whole idea there's a finite amount of money. So anyway, this 12-step group, one of the tools is a vision board, which everything in me just wants to vomit. I mean, this is so against, first of all, my New England upbringing, where we simply did not subscribe to sort of such woo-woo things. I've probably mentioned my vision board before. My latest one is actually up here. And so, you hear people say, my vision is to have, be married to a guy who's 6'4" and have a swimming pool and a 3-story house, and then my own show that I write, direct, and star in. And that's, I shouldn't make fun of it, but that's a vision, or one kind of a vision. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, what is, but to me, it's what is the deepest desire of my heart. And I love nice things. I love having this, to me, this beautiful house that I rent in Tucson. By many people's standards, it would be considered extremely modest, but a vision to me seems to imply more, this is how I want to look in the eyes of the world, sort of. It has to do with exterior things, it seems, mostly. So, which was never, those have never been my deepest desire. As much as I love stuff, and believe me, I like food and clothes and all kinds of stuff. But to me, the way, way deeper notion is that of vocation, of a call. And I think it matters very much which one of those is kind of more important to you or deeper for you, or whether, many people don't even have a vocation. They wouldn't even, I think, get to that. And it has to do with, there's this Victorian, I guess, theologian, philosopher, maybe he was a poet, Coventry Patmore. I don't know much about him, Patmore, but he has this great quote that I copied out years ago, and it has to do with the saint, when he talks about how the saint is the guy who you live with, you never for a second think he's a bit different than you. This is kind of like Therese of Lisieux, who her own sisters were she's okay, she does. Anyway, the end of it runs, the saint does everything that any other decent person does, only somewhat better and with a totally different motive. And so I just love that. Although I would sort of argue with this somewhat better. If I'm not a saint, I would love to be a saint, though. I think most things worse than other people. I'm incompetent in many, many ways, but and I'm not even a great writer, even though writing's my vocation. But I do feel like I give it everything I have. Anyway, but the totally different motive, and so this whole idea of vision versus vocation. Anybody's going to say you get sober, okay? So, all other things being equal, you're totally going to have a better chance at getting, a guy, a girl, a job, a high-paying job, a nice car, all that stuff, if you, clean up your act. And so you can clean up your act, or you can be a writer, or you can be a priest, or you can be a mother, all kinds of things that are kind of stations in life that are beautiful, beautiful stations, but your motive can be either you or something greater than you. And so if you're acting better simply to get ahead in the world, it's a very kind of thin motive, whereas the vocation you will do, and maybe the same things, be a mother, be a writer, but it's a labor of love that requires not just a little part of you, but the whole physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, There's a great book, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, The Gift by Lewis Hyde, Hyde. It's a book about art and the artistic spirit. It has a subtitle. I don't know where the book is. It's around here somewhere. The Gift. And it has to do with exchange. And it's very interesting, kind of a philosophical reflection, book length. But he talks about the person of with genius, and by genius he doesn't mean you're above everyone else, but who has a gift, as we all do. And he says we don't capitalize on the gift, which doesn't mean if we, for example, are a writer, we don't make a living. That's not what he's talking about. But he says we don't capitalize on the gift, we sacrifice for it. And so that, to me, is the difference between a vision and a vocation. Like if I want to be a, kind of hack, bodice ripper writing, again, I don't want to, I shouldn't even say that, but if the call of your heart is to write a certain way and from a certain place in your heart, and you stop short of that, you take the shortcut, that is a compromise of integrity. It's not a sacrifice. It's a capitalization on your gift. And I think obviously there's a temptation to do that, because that is often how you get a swimming pool and a 3-story house. And these are I'm just fascinated. These kinds of, the choices that we make, the temptations that we're faced with, and every day, and they come in larger, kind of more graphic forms and smaller ones. I've been thinking a lot too about the great line in the Gospels about the Son of Man. The foxes have their lairs and the birds of the air have their nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And that you can take that in so many different ways. He had no real home. He had no real resting place. I mean, during his active ministry, he was obviously on the move a lot, and I mean, the whole time, really. But also I was thinking, even for the person, say the cloistered nun who never leaves the cloister, there's a way that we can rest, quote unquote, in the wrong way, in our thoughts. Because, it's a lot of work just to be alive and to think, have an active mind, right? And there's all information coming at us from all sides. We have all kinds of stuff to do in the course of a day, work and just taking care of the house and all kinds of, and so your mind, it's work, it's exertion. I think our minds tend to want to rest, and one place they can very easily rest is in a place that judges other people or separates us from other people or gloats because other people have gotten their comeuppance, or any of the zillions of ways that we humans, we have the gospel is of the fall today, that hideous moment in the Garden of Eden. It was all downhill from there when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and I think to be more aware of that when I'm doing that, how easy it is and how completely not nourishing it is. And how can I pray every morning the St. Francis prayer, let me be a channel of thy peace, and have these kinds of, think it's okay to have these kinds of thoughts in my head. And that is really to have nowhere to lay your head. When you I think, discipline yourself to, let me just hold the tension of my active mind and life. Or, I guess when you're really evil, you rest. Christ says, come away and rest in me. You rest in him, but not in dark thoughts of other people. Anyway, so the whole, vocation, I'm always in awe at, I went to Mass last night, and actually just went to noon Mass here today too, Saints Peter and Paul here in Tucson. But anyway, I went to the Vespers Mass last night, And I was walking home and I met this light at Campbell and Third. And all of a sudden, I had this moment of clarity. Because I don't know about you, but my life, I'm always thinking like, oh, pretty soon now, speaking of rest, like this constant barrage of stuff. Well, I experience it as a barrage simply because it doesn't take much to sort of overstimulate and overwhelm me. But this kind of constant people wanting stuff and needing stuff and sending stuff and asking stuff and responding to stuff and which is all our lives like that. So, like pretty soon though, there's gonna be a clearing. There's gonna be like a nice long, weeks long, months long clearing. And I realized you've been saying this for decades. Like that moment is not gonna come, and this is your life that has been given to you. It's all that you can handle, and in some ways it's a lot to handle. I mean, I think we're given all we can handle for our own individual temperament, given our own temperament and wounds and talents and so forth. But just for example, this is my life. Okay, a couple of weekends ago I flew to Denver to give a talk to these Catholic ladies there. Okay, so that's it's a whole 2-day extravaganza. It was great, wonderful. We'll probably never hear from them again, which is true of much of what I do and probably what everyone does. Like you pour your soul out and then that's it. Good, thank you, trusted servant. Let's move on to the next thing. But anyway, Denver, a friend who I know, these are many people I know through my writing, lives in El Salvador, works for a Catholic organization. He's devised his own sort of RCIA program for his kid and his teenage kid and the kid's neighbors and his wife who's not in and so, hey, would you meet on a Sunday morning at 8:30 my time and tell your story? Okay, great, of course. Hear from a priest out of the blue in Orange County outside of LA yesterday. Oh, somehow your name keeps coming up. I wonder if you'd want to. He thought I lived in LA. Would you want to have coffee sometime? Oh, well, that would be a bit of a drive for me. But do you want to meet on Zoom? So we made a date to meet on Zoom next week. Will you be my 12-step sponsor? Will you do this kind of service here? Will you? Meanwhile, I'm getting my own sort of direction and so I always have work to do because I too avail myself of help. Received a wonderful package in the mail today about Sister, she's a servant of God, Chikaba, I think is her name. She's a princess slave from the 1700s in New Guinea or somewhere who became I'm sure I've got that wrong. It's not New Guinea, but anyway, she was kidnapped by the Spanish and took to be a slave and converted and became a cloistered nun. Received a big package with prayer cards and pamphlet about. So of course I want to read all this. My friend from rehab who just went to Bulgaria. Hey, here's like films and photos, and so it's all. And I really try to give everyone my undivided attention for that for as long as I can. I mean, even if it's a moment. And so, yeah, that is my vocation. It's not, it's writing is like the hook that it kind of hangs on, but it is a true labor of love at which I earn a living and also do a ton of stuff that is just outside the ambit of, money earning. And I'm all for money earning, and I don't think money is a filthy lucre or anything. I think money is a beautiful tool. I like it as much as the next person, but it's not the focus of my life. And I think my motive is always to give glory to God. None of that means I have any more virtue or anything than the next person. it's a gift and a grace. And I think for me, because the thing is, if I didn't do it for God, I just I wouldn't have sustained. I wouldn't have persevered. I wouldn't have still be here. I mean, I don't care enough about myself or money or you or fame or anything to like keep going at it. And so, but that it is basically for God. Like that is my motive. That's what keeps me going. And then, of course, it becomes a joy in the midst of the kind of unrelenting, or what it feels like often, onslaught, and the sort of lack of somewhere to lay my head, it feels like a lot of the time. And again, this is not, it's like I lead some rarefied existence. This is the human condition. And so I offer all this just in case it jogs something about your own life that might help you to, view it with joy and excitement and hope and a sense of humor. Anyway, I have chattered away way too long. This happens sometimes. So thank you so much for listening. Question 7 by Richard Flanagan. Check it out. I actually bought it because I was too impatient to wait for it at my local library. Okay. Happy Valentine's Day. I myself am the bride of Christ, so I did celebrate with him. And I hope you have a nice celebration with whoever. Okay.